It's time for DVD. Chase McCabe hanging out for a second alongside Derek Mason. Willie Donick will be here in just a few minutes. Adam Vingan with the rest of the week off.
Yes, and listen, I want to.
Do I get overtime for this?
Yeah. Hey, you got to discuss that with yourself.
I
So
know.
go put
Hey,
on your red
Chase.
shirt.
Chase, I need you to fill in for a second. All right. Can I get some overtime for that? No, we can't do that right now. Sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
It'd been great if you had your red shirt on and we go back and forth. No, I want to. Okay, Adam. He's been texting the group, and I get it. Oh wow, what did I do here? I hit one of these buttons, man.
Yeah, hang on.
There we go. Hopefully, I ain't call nobody. But so Adam has been sending texts, right?
He's supposed to be on vacation.
And it's supposed to be on vacation. And it's not like we're ignoring them, but like we got two different, we got one over here, then one over here. So it's like going back and forth.
opinion on it. That was Jeffrey Simmons.
And we're going to be in a long line of people giving their opinion.
He did it while we were on the air
Exactly.
yesterday, and we kind of saved it. And Jared sort of teed off on it, as you would expect.
Of course.
On his
that
show
was red
yesterday.
meat for him.
I listened to Trevor Maddich, and his I would say Trevor's take on it was much more measured, right? He broke it down in a nuanced way, which I appreciated. But I'll ask you, because I know you've been outspoken, because there's a couple things here.
Yes.
There is a veteran player deciding to take a couple of days and miss a couple of practices. Because in the big picture, is he going to be a better or worse player when it's time to play because he missed that? I think you can argue, no, it's not going to make any difference. But from the other standpoint of what is expected of Jeffrey Simmons and where the team is, where the coaching staff is, what they're trying to build from the bottom up, what did you think of how he handled that part of it? Because what Trevor's point was, and it's a good one, we could all, he knew that question was going to happen, so he had plenty of time to decide what he was going to say about it.
Yes.
Right? He had plenty of time. He could have talked to a lot of people about it, could have talked to his agent, could have talked to the team's PR, for whoever that is now. I don't know who if he leans on that group at all. Some players do, some players don't. But the answer of it was personal and not getting any detail in there was interesting to me. So what did you think of it?
Yeah. Listen, my opinion comes from a place of not that Jeff is a bad person or a bad player, because he's not. It's all about leadership and how the perception is. And you have an opportunity to shape the perception or shape the narrative about you. And in each opportunity, just about each opportunity you've had, well, let's just say the last 3 times, you have fallen short. So much so that people question your leadership skills and if you truly are a leader. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not here. I'm not about to name call it and all that other stuff. I'm just not. And I'm not saying that, other people, they choose to do what they want to do. That's not my business. But what I would say is this, Jeff, you got to understand, man, when you were not here for minicamp, well, for the voluntary camp, you had enough time to put together your response, because I believe you are intelligent enough and you are, you are a guy that tends to, think about things in a sense. So you should have known that you were going to get this question and you should have been better equipped.
Right.
To answer it.
No, it wasn't going to be
Exactly.
one question and then move on.
Absolutely.
You knew there were going to be follow-ups.
Mhm.
So you knew if you said it was a personal decision, there would be, just like there were, follow-up questions. So let me ask you this. If he were sitting down with you and I and said, okay, guys, how should I handle this? I'll tell him I'll tell you what I would have told him. Not that he would ever ask me, but I have been covering press conferences and covering media for over 30 years in this market. Since the very beginning of the Titans, I was at some scrums where D-Mace was talking when he was a young player, when it was the Oilers, right?
Yes.
That's how far back I go. So I just have seen this a lot. I've not been trained in it, but I've watched it. So what would you have told him to say?
I would have told him, tell the truth. You were working out. What is if you are asking me that question, or
so
Paul,
that's
or
why
anybody,
you believe he didn't do it. Is he wanted to work out with his own people on his own and not with the group.
That is all you have to say, because I think the media would respect that more than you getting up there and giving a non-answer.
Yep.
An answer that you thought about on the fly instead of thinking about it days prior or a week prior, because you knew this question was going to be asked of you. So that's my big problem. Just say, hey, listen, man, I wanted to get my last round of workouts in. with my people, get to spend some more time with my family. And I knew I was going to be back once mandatory camp started, because once it started, I plan on being here, all the time or majority of the time. That's all he had to say. And what would be Paul's or anybody else's rebuttal? It's not. You can't give any. You can't.
I think
come
that's
back
what you talk through on the front. And say, okay, what are they going to say? And you kind of go through what could the follow-ups be?
Which makes me think this, and I thought about this, and I have not met. I know some of the staff member coaches. I know some of them. I think Stevie J's still there. And I play with Stevie J.
Steve Jackson.
Steve Jackson. Yeah, I'm sorry. But I'm not sure if I think people are walking on eggshells around there when it comes to Jeffrey Simmons. I really do. And I don't know why. I really don't. And I'm not saying it's Jeffrey's fault that they're walking on eggshells. I'm just saying, because anything that ever comes up about Jeffrey Simmons, they almost try to, outside of Callahan saying what he said the other day, Jeffrey needs to get more sacks. Beside that, they've downplayed any and everything when it comes to Jeffrey Simmons. They have. And my thing is, are y'all walking on eggshells around an individual? And again, I'm not saying that this is Jeffrey's fault. I'm just saying it just seems like he's that one player. I can see if everyone's doing it with the quarterback. I get it. The quarterback has a different psyche. You can't, just like a golfer or a pitcher. You got to come at those guys different. He's not one of those guys. He comes off as if you can be honest with me, I can be honest with you. That's how he comes off. So if that's the case, why does it seem like everybody's walking on? Well, at least the people that talk about him. I'm not going to say everybody, because everyone doesn't talk about him on that coaching staff. They're not asked about Jeffrey Simmons, okay? So let me say that. I'm not saying everybody. I'm talking about the coaches that they ask the questions about Jeffrey Simmons. It seems like they are walking on eggshells with him. And it's like, why? Outside of Brian Callahan saying that the other day, I don't think they've ever said anything that would, make you think that, yeah, Jeff, he needs to get in line after hearing what they just said. They haven't. And there has been opportunities for them to do that. Now, behind closed doors, they may have. I don't know. But it just seems, the perception is he's that one guy that nobody really says anything else to. I heard this about another player way back, Pac-Man. It was like nobody really says anything to Pac-Man. Okay, I wasn't in the locker room, but that was the perception. Like nobody said anything to him because of he could be possibly volatile and say something back. So they just didn't want to have to deal with the back and forth, at least not in public.
Very interesting. I got a lot of response on the text line, 615-737-1025, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. My approach, I think, would have been, okay, here is the big thing. Mm-hmm. Whether you want to be or not, you are the most well-known player on this team, from a veteran standpoint. Mm-hmm. And you are going to be grilled on the rap that you already know. This is me talking fictitiously to Jeffrey Simmons. You already know that people have questioned your leadership skills, your ability to be a leader. You're going to get that question. You chose not to come. It's like when you're in those shoes, right? You can't chastise him.
No, I get
and
it.
Say, why didn't you come? Like maybe if you know him that well, maybe you can. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is he chose not to come. Yes. We're trying to deal with how you approach it yesterday.
Exactly.
I think you just have to give more explanation than it was a personal decision.
But again, that
now we know we do know that it's Terry McCormick has reported there's some issues he's dealing with his son who's special needs and resources that he's responsible for.
He could have said,
and he chose not to go there. And when you say personal, it could have been part of it. And he maybe not want to get into details, but you can say, I've got some stuff going on off the field that I'd rather not get into, but that was a part of it. You could do that.
And the other part,
you could talk about I wanted to work out by myself.
Yeah.
But I think explaining yourself as much as you can and acknowledging, I think this is the important part about the leadership part, acknowledging that even though it's a voluntary workout, that I knew that it was going to be noticeable that I didn't come. I know our team is trying to rebuild. I know people are looking to me to be a big part of that. And I understood that when I made this decision. It was a tough decision, but I'm going to make up for it by doing X, Y, and Z. I'm here. I'm going to work harder. Now, he's not the greatest. Some guys are easier able to navigate that in a press conference than others. It doesn't come easy for Jeff, but I think there had to be something there, right, to acknowledge that, yeah, I understand it was a big deal that I wasn't there. People expect a lot of me. Everybody else was there.
And
right?
That's the part.
It wasn't like 5 guys weren't there. He wasn't there.
Yeah. And that's the part that I think Jeff has to really understand. It's not about being voluntary. It's about being there for your teammates. For this reason, y'all, again, facts are facts, okay? Y'all have lost damn near triple the games that y'all have won over the last 3 years. Just want to repeat that to you. Y'all have lost damn near triple the games that y'all have won over the last 3 years. And I think y'all only won like 9 games, somewhere around there, 8, somewhere around there.
It's not a lot.
So no one gets.
They've won 9 in the last 2 years.
No one, and they've lost, 30-something games, 32, 33. So no one gets a pass. That I think that's what Jeffrey Simmons has to understand. And hopefully Brian Callahan and hopefully, Denard Wilson, they're explaining this to him. No one gets a pass. Why? Because we are not a winning organization right now. When you're not a winning organization, you can't take those extra days off. Or if it does happen, you need to have a response, because once you get back to camp, people are going to be asking, and you can't say, well, I don't care about that stuff. You got to care.
You have to care.
You have to care.
And I'll give you another piece of it. At the very least, there should have been a discussion of him letting the team know, I'm not going to be there. Let's talk about this. Here's why I'm not going to be there. And at least give the team a chance on the front end to say, hey, before anybody watches, I'm just going to let you know Jeffrey's not going to be there. Now, Mike Vrabel, he was pretty good at the Julio Jones not going to practice. He let everybody know at the very beginning, look, this guy ain't going to practice.
And Vrabel used to tell you that I'm only talking about the people that are here.
Right. And at that point, the media can't really do anything. You've already addressed it. You said on the front before anybody asks, he's not going to be here. I don't think Brian Callahan really had a chance, or at least they didn't seem to be in lockstep on this, where he could have come out and said, look, before anybody notices, you're going to see Jeff's not out there. I've talked to Jeff. Here's Jeff's position. We're okay with it. They could have sort of kept the fire to a minimum. He still would have been criticized, I think, for not doing it. But at the same time, it would have been softened. But it doesn't look good from any angle of this with that. We've got a lot of reaction on the text line. When we come back, we're going to read some of these texts. By the way, David James is back.
Hey,
fresh
David.
out of the
Yes, he's
airport.
back.
And we talked boy, did we talk airport, David.
It was
And,
I don't even want to talk about that.
Right. So at some point we're gonna cool down. Settle in a little bit.
Not let it fester, but let it chill out just for a little bit.
Okay. And then we're gonna see what exactly the Odyssey was, because I got a text from David, and you did as well, D Mace, at I believe it was like 4:30 in the morning. 4:30 a.m. And I'm like, wait a minute, what time is it? But I mean, he was very diligent saying, guys, here's the issue. So I appreciated that. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm getting a text at 4:30 from David. So anyway, we're gonna solve that mystery later. But we're gonna read from our text line. If you want to jump in, we're gonna go through it, or call 615-737-1025. And it's sponsored by or driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Stay tuned. We're coming back here on DVD. All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. If you are on the verge this summer and maybe on into the fall of doing an extensive home improvement project that you can't cover with your regular budget. That's most people, right? You want to fund it, finance it somehow. Here is a great tool that Loan Pronto uses out of your home's equity. It's called the Rapid Equity Loan. They can get you approved for the cash you need for this home improvement project in a hurry. They can get it to you quick. You can be approved in under 24 hours, and they've got a great digital process with very little hassle. You don't touch your low rate first mortgage, no appraisal, no waiting. You'll get that money and you can start with that home improvement project that's going to make your house better and more valuable. So call Loan Pronto. What are you waiting for? LoanPronto.com is the website. Very simple. 615-499-5780. LoanPronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. D-Mays, Svingen and Donick, presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet 365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason coming at you from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We're talking about Jeffrey Simmons and his comments. He's back. I mean, that's good. He's not skipping this one.
Exactly.
But he was sort of under the microscope yesterday, and it got a big reaction from the media. He said it was a personal decision to opt out of the voluntary minicamp that was a few days ago. And see, these responses on our text line are interesting to me. The first one: get this bum off our team. He's useless. Now that's a little strong, right? And that's the dilemma. He is the most talented player that they have. He's the highest paid player they have. So you can't just get this bum off the team.
No, you can't.
You got to deal with it. But what do you do?
It's and listen, people, if you want to have that opinion, so be it. I'm not, even if he was a bad player, I still wouldn't, meaning being a bad teammate, not being a leader, and doing yada yada yada. If he's a good player, I'm not going to call him a bum. It's just, man, maybe he's not the guy for this team. But then you're going to have some people that, say, well, it was only voluntary, so it's not a big deal. And to those people, it's like, okay, but you got to understand, your team's only won 9 games in 3 years. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want people to understand that's where I'm coming from. Not that I dislike him or anything. Don't know him like that. Or know him at all, really, other than talking with him a few times on our station, I believe. But I just expect more because of where this team is at. And he is the most tenured guy on this roster. He's the highest paid guy on this roster. And he is the guy that has wanted this mantle for the longest.
615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow is going to join us at the top of the hour. He'll have his 2 cents on this and some other Titans things going on. Randy says Jeffrey parsed his words. It was a personal decision, is the quote. Not it was for personal reasons like a family issue. And that, as we talked about in the last segment, if he could have clarified that,
exactly,
he probably would have gone over a little bit better. And he kind of, because remember, he was pinned down. Hey, was it a football personal reason? And he was like,
both
football, non-football, kind of everything. He just, he didn't take the opportunity to say, yeah, there's some stuff going on in my life that I had to take care of as well. He didn't go there. Exactly.
And people, it's and I've said this, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's not that it was a personal matter. It's how you said it. It was all flustered and, like you just thought about it at that moment and you didn't really think about what your answer could possibly be. Or as a matter of fact, I would tell, again, someone, that I respect in this business, when I was playing long time ago, said, Derek, when you are conducting an interview or you are answering questions, take your time. They're not going anywhere. Formalize what you want to say, think about it, and then let that be your answer. Don't think you have to rush to say something, because typically what happens when you rush to say something, you start fumbling and, things come out maybe not the way you wanted it. And then people take out of context what you say. Think about it, because Paul, those guys, they wasn't going nowhere. Teresa, if she was there, I believe Teresa was there. They wasn't going nowhere. They wanted to hear you.
This is where media relations, if you are open to learning about this, the player has to be open to it. Exactly. You can have the best media relations in the world, but if the player is like, I'm not really listening to this, then that you can't help them. But I also don't think the media relations has done a great job handling this part of it and really getting through to him. Look, you need to listen to me. We need to talk about this. You can't go up there and say it's personal and that's it.
And then not give anyone
you can't
a personal recent birth. Both.
I mean, you can. It's just not going to go over very well.
And in my personal life, it was a personal decision. Okay.
Yeah, give me some detail.
Okay.
As much as you can. You don't have to reveal anything you don't want to reveal, but as much detail as you can reveal will help you. I just there's a disconnect there. Got a lot of texts. I want to read through them as quick as we can. Gino Jeff doesn't think the media or fans deserve to know more than what he had to say. People can take that whichever way they want. I take it as disrespectful. I also feel he doesn't respect the head coach. If Jeff knew OTAs would be used for team building and he didn't show up for personal reasons, it's disrespectful.
And listen, I don't know what the relationship is like between Callahan and Jeffrey Simmons. I'm sure they had a talk prior to voluntary and mandatory OTAs. I'm sure they've had that talk, and what was ever discussed in that talk, maybe it wasn't conveyed clearly. Because listen, when Callahan was asked about it, he really didn't have much, if anything, to say about it, instead of saying, hey, listen, Jeff is at home. He and I talked about it. This is what's happening. This is what I can tell you. Jeff will fill you in on the rest and let it be,
Joey from Gallatin. Sorry, hold on. We got Joey from Bellevue and Joey from Gallatin.
Two Joeys.
We got a lot of Joeys. Joey from Bellevue. Jeff has had enough time between locker cleanout day and voluntary minicamp. What? Almost 6 months? Plenty of time to do his thing. I guess saying there was time to take care of your personal stuff, if that's what it was, and still, schedule yourself to be ready to go for workouts. That's a fair point. I mean, you never know when stuff comes up, but you got to specify. You got to specify that, though. Communicate that if that's part of it. Now let's get to the other Joey from Gallatin. Simmons wants the role of a leader without doing the work to be a leader. I think that is. I don't know.
That's the way it's perceived.
Well, let me ask this:
That's
do you think he wants to be the leader?
Yeah, I think he wants to be.
So you do think he wants that title? He wants that.
He 100%,
because that's a big thing. Yeah. Some guys really don't want to do that,
and that's why I said
they're not cut out for it.
Yeah, that's why I said some guys want to be the leader, but they're just not cut out to be the leader, like the leader. Now, you can be, the leader of your group, but when you're talking about the leader of 50-some guys and, until the quarterback gets going, you are that guy for the franchise, that's different from leading your defensive line group. So, there's nothing in me that tells me Jeffrey Simmons doesn't want to be the leader of the franchise. It just so happened it hasn't. The perception is it's not working out well, and he doesn't know how to lead. That's what the perception is.
Nevada Josh, who was very active on the text line yesterday on our show, says it's really none of our business why Simmons isn't at work. Just like it's not my business if you guys don't show up to work. That's between you and Chase.
Again,
I get that. But
I get the premise.
It's different. It's different when you are in the shoes of and the responsibility, the investment in Jeffrey Simmons.
You remember the old saying, different strokes for different folks?
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks. Yeah. You at your job, or Willie and I, we may not have to tell y'all, or you may not have to tell us because we're not in that position. But when you're talking about Jeffrey Simmons, who they have pointed out as the leader or one of the leaders on this team, you do have an obligation. And I'm going to say that again. You do have an obligation and a responsibility to, if you're not going to be here, let that be known, because the question is going to be asked of a team that has only won 9 games in 3 years, and their best player isn't there while the head coach is trying to build team camaraderie, trying to build that closeness that he believes you need in order to win in this league, or one of the ingredients in order to win in this league. So when that is the case and your head coach is saying all of these things, we're putting together teams, we're doing this, we're having contests, we're building a team, iron sharpen iron. When your head coach says that, and then you don't show up, and then you give the answer that you gave, it's not suffice. It's not enough. You have a responsibility to this team. You do, whether you want an obligation, responsibility, whatever. You have an obligation, responsibility to those other 52 guys or 51 guys or however it varies in camp right about now. That you, which is the leader right now, you want to be that guy. You need to be here at least. You got to be here, man. And I know, Jeff, it was voluntary. I get it. And you had listen. You chose not to come. That's cool. It's all right with me. It is, but the perception is Jeffrey's not a leader.
Well, and
that's the perception.
You can read the perception. The perception is in our texters, on our text line. Let me just read through these because we're out of time, and then we're going to go to Hut here in a moment. This is Chuck. I personally would find a way to replace him for the betterment of the team. His performance justifies finding a way to trade him. Now, you got to get that's a whole nother thing. I am going to ask that question a little bit later. The future here. Ed, hasn't his team won and been in the playoffs when Big Jeff didn't show up for OTAs? Was he a bad leader then? I think losing changes the perspective. I don't know his history, and this is the thing. Nobody's going to remember in a few years whether he skipped.
They have Byer, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, guys like that.
Yeah, the veterans were more of the leadership.
Exactly.
Austin says, honestly, it doesn't bother me. It wasn't mandatory. He's here when it matters. I think people are thinking about this too much. And it's echoed by a couple other people. A couple other people also echo he's not a leader, etc. Let's leave it there for now. We'll transition to Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike and Hutton and Withrow, and we'll get his take on Big Jeff, and we will get into some of the other things going on. Like, hey, Cam Ward was out there, threw the ball around pretty well yesterday. We'll break down what that means, etc. in hour number 2 of DVD here on 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2 of D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick here on 102.5 The Game. Streaming live, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all of that stuff. We're having another great time today. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Adam Vingen is on vacation the rest of the week. David James is back in the saddle after his odyssey coming home from Disney. We'll find out about we talked a lot about David and the trip to Disney, the nuances, navigating the mass of humanity at Disney, and then, of course, the issues at the airport. He's been through it all, so we're going to pick his brain a little bit later in the show. We're very curious. But also, we've got Jonathan Hutton on the line with us from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, and we got a lot to talk about with the Titans, who are in the middle of the mini camp going on right now, the first one involving Cam Ward. So, Hut, welcome to the show.
Always great to be on with you guys. You mentioned Disney. I was just talking last night about Disney parents or whatever they're called, who just don't even, like they go and I guess adult Disney adults.
Yeah, Disney adults.
Okay, is that what Dave? Is that what you did?
No. That's so. I was with my nephews. I went with my nephews.
Can I ask you guys a roundtable question, just real quick?
Yes.
What age? So all the kids go down, and I've always said, I don't want to go to Disney if I ever have children until they're going to remember the trip. Is that fair?
I brought that up. Fair. I actually brought that up while David was gone. I think that is something to consider for sure. Because if you're younger than, I know for me, I can't remember a whole lot before I was in kindergarten, which is age, 6?
I totally agree. Yeah, same here. 4 or 5 years old.
So we purposely waited until our youngest was 5 before we did that. And that was part of the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I have asked him, I was like, do you remember going to Disney?
And
he does say yes.
Right? It's the arguments with the parents. You end up frustrated. You try not to argue. And inevitably, everyone talks about coming back and just being totally like over it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think the older the kid, the better.
Yeah, I think, around that, I'm trying to figure out when did we take ours? It had to be around that 4 or 5 years old. It may have been earlier than that just to go to Disney, and they probably didn't remember it. I haven't asked them, but we went recently, the kids and I, and we loved it.
Sure,
so
yeah.
The best time to go is when you're an adult.
If you got an excuse to keep going back, I'm in. I'm all about it.
Logan Ryan, former Titans quarterback, he and his wife are like Disney hosts. Like you can go and like she will plan everything for you. That they are all in on that. Like they get paid to do it
because hey, it's worth it. It's worth investing the time at least. I don't know about the money, but it's worth researching before you go down there. Don't just roll into the park and say, "Hey, here we are. What do we do?"
No,
you need to study a little bit. It will help you with the experience. But anyway, we'll find out what David's experience was like in a few moments.
Yeah.
But let's get to the Titans. Let's start with the Jeffrey Simmons, and then I want to get your thoughts on how you feel like Cam Ward is doing here, how to interpret this, because some of the same things that happen every year, especially with the first overall pick, are happening, not just locally but nationally. But what did you think of Jeffrey Simmons and his handling as to, why he didn't come to the voluntary OTAs?
The personal reason stuff, like, I mean, I know Koharski's chronicled like what's going on, Stillman as well. And everyone knows whatever legal issues are going on with, or personal issues with his family drama. I say drama because he doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know how. I would just say that whatever is going on, but that's up to him. Like I look, he came back and he looks great. I mean, he's in shape. He's ready to go. That's the only takeaway I can come into this with is, well, it's minicamp and he's been working. Now, the mentality is the grizzly bear going to be on the field? And we won't know that until he's locked in. I mean, there's clearly distractions going on right now. Otherwise, you feel like he'd be there. So I don't think this is not the issue, but it is absolutely true that he liked John Robinson, and he's really in with Rand. We got the contract done, right? They got the deals and the money. And then Rand comes in, and Rand's talking about him being the team leader. I mean, he's seen a lot of change over the course of his young career. And there's got to be frustration there. As you look around, you're going through a rebuild after being there and, he's reaching where he should be, in his prime, and they're doing some things where they're clearly not trying to take a step back, but they absolutely have over the last 3 years each year. And he was one of the guys who went up and talked with J-Rob whenever he got fired. What's going on here? So I view it like he's not. This is not why he's not there during OTAs. But look, if he's going to miss, this is the time to miss, not during the regular season. And something's going on in Dallas.
Yeah, listen, you may be, you're right. I think from just the standpoint of, hey, he's here when it's mandatory, so it's not mandatory. Him not being here shouldn't affect the team moving forward. But because I asked Willie this question, or I made this statement, it seems like, and I don't want to leave David out because I presented that to David too. I believe he was here at the time. It just seems like those that talk about Jeffrey Simmons in that building, they walk on eggshells. And I don't know if that's the perception, at least, is that anything that happens with Jeff, it's, well, let's walk this tightrope. Let's be delicate with it. There's only one player you need to be delicate with on that team, and that's the quarterback. Anybody else outside the quarterback, maybe the kicker, but anybody outside those two people, because mentally you got to be careful. Anybody outside that, it's fair game. But it seems like with him, the perception is, it's just we can't say too much.
Well, there's clearly other things going on. You're saying just in the facility, right?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just saying as far as, I'm not talking about this situation per se, but I'm just saying whenever something comes up with Jeff, it's like we got to be delicate in talking about it when it comes to the team.
It's a day-to-day process. You don't know if he's going to, be pissed off, or he's going to be in a good mood to talk, or like walking off the field, he's reading his mentions, or he goes in and gets a text from a family member, comes back out, like that's your point right there. Everything's personal, right? I don't think we have referenced OTAs in regards to certain players in a long time. I don't think about May and June whenever September rolls around. That's mainly like we as a fans of football or media, we reference Rodgers not being there last year in New York, but Rodgers is the leader of that team. Jeffrey Simmons was anointed. This guy's going to be the leader. He needs to step and be the leader of the team last year. That was Rand Carthon saying that. He wasn't that. Jeff's not going to be that guy. So I look at it like in September, he needs to be the guy that is as dominant at defensive tackle on the defensive line as he is expected to be, and he's capable of being. We've seen where he is great, and we've seen where it's just been, okay. And it's okay is not good enough for his talent level and where they need to be. That I'm not going to reference the month of May if he comes in shape and he's not having to go inside and work on his own in order. He's not doing that, but it's voluntary, and Mike Vrabel's not the head coach.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That's another point. Like Mike Vrabel's not the head coach. Vrabel's not going to say the things that Callahan's been saying this offseason. He's not going to mention his name. He can't call him out, but he's not going to mention his name. And there's just a different tone to it.
This is not that important for what I'm going to ask, but do we think the new stadium will be ready in 2026? Are we thinking 2027? I haven't really followed it. I don't think they.
Okay, are you saying for football?
For football, the Titans open the 2026 season. Yeah,
ahead of schedule. Well ahead of schedule.
Right, and if they're not, you're probably not going to switch midstream. It's too confusing with the tickets and everything. So we're thinking 2027, right? And
remember, like they have to have time before the season. They got to get the equipment out of there. They have to move in. Right. So it's not just like, oh, it's built, time to play football. That you have to move in. So there's a lot of things that go into it. They would have to be well ahead of schedule in order to play 2026.
Okay. So in 2027.
2027 of the fall of 27 is when they're scheduled to be in there.
All right. So fall of 2027, they're opening the new stadium. Jeffrey Simmons.
By the way, Willie, I think it opens in the spring. I think they're going to have a big event there. Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going. In 2027, when the first Titan season in the new stadium is happening, Jeffrey Simmons will be 30. Do we think he'll be a Titan at that point with where this is going?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, how many years is left on his contract?
2, I think.
I haven't looked, but I'm just thinking
2.
Practically. I mean, we see what's going on with TJ Watt. We see what's going on with Hendrickson. We know when you hit 30, there's a lot of, hey, a guy makes a lot of money, a guy's starting to get a little age on him. What's he worth? All of that stuff.
I mean, he's probably with the way he's playing last season, probably not.
Right.
However, keep in mind the rookie quarterback pay window is still going on with Cam Ward. If Cam Ward's the guy, you can benefit by putting money elsewhere. So like if he's Jeffrey Simmons, the dominant player that can take on the double teams, then he's on the team. I'm doing this based on the current contract.
Yeah,
he has 2 more years after this one.
Okay, so he would need a new deal. Okay. You would probably have him on a new deal at that stage when that stadium opens, or you'd have to address it because you got to address it before it goes to the last minute. So I guess realistically,
this is good. Really, this is a good question because everything they're doing is geared towards that. I know where you're headed with this.
Yeah, so that's I guess where I'm going is what's the best way to approach this?
Yeah.
Are you better off starting down the road? And I brought this up during the draft. Is if you need players and you're really eyeing that as the next time realistically you want to have the roster where you want it. Do you want Jeffrey Simmons part of that, or are you better off with where things are at to see what the market is like? I'm not saying just give them away or anything like that, but what do you do there?
I think I wouldn't be surprised if teams asked if the Titans are willing to and they're in a rebuild. There's only two, 3 players that are worth calling and asking about. I wouldn't be surprised if teams called about Jeffrey Simmons. I would. That's the quote unquote doing your due diligence. Knocking on doors and that's what you should be doing. Look, this is he's got to be. He's an asset to them right now. He has to be, because. I can also ask you: is the front office and the head coaching staff is staff going to be in the new stadium in 2027? Like, so with the way this is all gone, Jeffrey Simmons is a key cog in this because they need him to be Big Jeff. We haven't seen that guy like it. He's been steady but not great, and that's not good enough for what they need up front. And especially in stopping the run and all that. And pass rush, who's getting more than like 3 or 4 sacks this season? It would be him. So he's got to, when they've got problems at pass rush, if things are getting funneled and he's there, he's got to make the play. And we didn't see big plays. It was interesting how they rotated everything last year. It's a great question about 27. Because I do think it's geared more towards that year than what people think. If you look at the draft, the developmental draft, develop, and then retain, that follows this path to the new stadium.
If I had to make a bet on this, Hut, whether he would be here or not, I would tend to lean toward not because I think his play will drop off considerably, but I just think what he will be asking for, the Titans will be looking at as, that may be too much for a guy.
Well, let's also say this. That random people are going to pay attention to this stuff. Whenever Vrabel goes to New England and he likes a post about it, and he says it was he didn't mean to do it. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
People are going to read that. There's always little things like that. And I'm not saying everything's intentional, but he's exactly who. He's exactly who you're describing about walking on eggshells.
Exactly. So let's switch this real quick.
Right.
Cam Ward, obviously, there's been tweets and articles. He went 20 for 21. He was damn near perfect. He threw 1 interception. So it's starting to happen. They're starting to drum it up. And
that's
they're starting
where we're going.
it's starting to, Cam Ward. how difficult is it going to be, or difficult at all, for the Titans organization? I understand they're watching this, but how difficult is it going to be, or how strategic are they going to have to be to taper this down? Yeah, they see the same things that probably we are seeing in regards to the practice and a 20 for 20 or 20 for 21. Yeah, we see all that. But how they keep all that tapered is one thing.
So the comments made last week about not trying to, burn both ends of the candle.
Mhm.
But I'm paraphrasing there. That was Callahan. I don't think that means that Cam Ward's going to slow down one bit with this. Getting there at 5 a.m. doing stuff. I don't think he's going to pay attention to that comment any more than just, hey, don't do more than what you're doing. You don't have to do everything, to the max and think you have to rush. This is a program. Stick to the program. Let's do this. And I think that's the key, is trying to get him to not do every single thing and pack everything into one week. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's one of the qualities of Cam Ward, is you've got that guy. The great quarterbacks are not 9 to 5 quarterbacks.
No.
We're already seeing that he's not that dude. That's huge. I mean, the guys walking through those doors at quarterback over the last decade plus go home at 5 o'clock, and they're not. I've heard guys getting there at what time? No one's said anything about quarterbacks getting there early recently. I mean, that's huge, and I say that's just the mentality that's been there. I haven't noticed it because they're not talking about it. Now they are, and that's a small detail. But Mace, if he forget all the 20 of 21 or whatever, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like, this. Are you saying locally? They're stats.
Yes.
But like, think about how the quarterback room has been recently, like the last 2 or 3 years. Malik Willis wouldn't throw the ball. We couldn't keep up with the passes with him. And then Will Levis is not leading the team. They didn't follow him, so it's just a different vibe. I think this is great. I'm not saying you have to throw everything and harness it. You do need to harness it. You don't have to pull back on the reins.
No, I wasn't necessarily saying pull back on the reins, but how do you, the expectation? Because what the fans are seeing, whether it be Jim or Paul, they're just putting out what they're seeing. But then a lot of times you take that and it just get multiplied as, Cam Ward is doing this. Then you have other people talking about it on national radio or television, how well Cam Ward is doing and how well they believe he will do during the season, instead of just tapering it and say, hey, the kid is developing, and that's all we want.
Well, I think, I think this happens every year.
Yeah.
To some extent, like whatever they're saying about Shador in Cleveland, or, any of the rookies, or McCarthy in Minnesota now, everybody's doing that. And it's tough not to pay attention to it if you're a diehard fan, but knowing how, and I asked this recently, how difficult it is to not look good, like to actually have consistently bad practices in this time of year. It's difficult to pull that off. It's difficult to not win a game across the entire NFL season based on the structure. You got to be really not gathering and taking things in if you're throwing things in the dirt. I think the hype's fine. I'm totally fine with there being a quarterback here that's overhyped for the first time in a while. That's good.
That's a fair question. So you build on that a little bit, Hut, because you've watched it, right? Would you be, because look, we all know that the communication, media relations regime has changed over there very recently, right? And that was very surprising to a lot of us in the media. But would you be conscious, because organizations have a choice of doing this? They could do nothing if they want, but sometimes messaging is important. Would you lean into the hype and say, let's hype him up? Or would you try to control it a little bit for the good of Cam Ward and not put him on a pedestal before we see what he does? I think that's an important question I would be asking internally.
That's where maybe you have to harness and pull the reins back a bit, but not. I mean, what jersey is selling right now? One dude. Who's buying any other jersey in that pro shop?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Another number.
That's part of your answer, right? That's part of the organization. There's a section of the organization that would be in that meeting raising their hand going, you can't hype it enough, man. We got to sell jerseys.
But even if you want to just not have to, have him drink out of a water hose, it's like, well, we can't get. He's the only person that he's going to be hyped no matter what, because
exactly
this is the only jersey you're going to buy.
And that's the problem, because you've got a football ops person. I might be in that room going, hey, let's be fair to him, right? We can't control that, right? I know that we are where we are. We picked first, but let's not put extra stuff on his shoulders.
And this is a totally fair discussion, because not only is it the jersey, he's the only person you think about when you think about the Tennessee Titans right now. I mean, nationally, they don't. It's not like the coaches are. Callahan's not going on Dan Pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you went to somebody in Wyoming or Denver or San Antonio and said, name 5 Titans, I think they could go Cam Ward, and maybe they get 1 or 2 other guys who maybe they had Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, one of the answers would be Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's coming out of the mouth about 50%.
But I think they'd have a trouble naming 5.
And without Cam Ward there, it was Mike Vrabel. Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. It is also something that you have to, you have to see if the guy can handle it. And it's an up and down season. It's going to happen no matter what. And if, it's not like the hype's going to be there. It's not like it's going to be just overwhelming. They're not on national TV. If things are going well in their flex, that means that he's handled it perfectly. So I think it's in the bubble itself locally, it's going to be crazy. The expectations of him being the next, Steve McNair and Warren Moon. He'll be anointed that by some whenever we get to training camp.
Hut, great stuff as always. Great to catch up. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yes, always great to chat with you guys. Have a great rest of the week.
All right, that's Jonathan Hutton. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow is his show. He joins us every Wednesday at noon here on the program. DVD is going to continue in a moment. I want to ask the question, and I'll get D-Mace's answer. If you're internal, you're in football ops, let's say you're not in jersey sales, because the answer is pretty obvious. But laying all that we did, how would you handle the part of it? And especially Brian Callahan and that part of it. How do you handle the energy that Cam Ward creates and is creating? That some of it you can't help. We'll discuss that in a moment here on 102.5 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick here on 102.5 The Game. We roll on 12:31 here on this Wednesday, and we are having a good time talking Titans and the minicamp going on. Don't forget to tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan later today as the Sounds take on Norfolk. Pregame begins at 5:20 p.m. and the first pitch is at 5:35 for the Sounds tonight with Jeff Hem and company.
Actually, it's going to be Max Hurst, I think. I think he's still there.
Oh, Max Hurst. I did not know this. Max
There
is
you
at the
go.
microphone? Why didn't he invite me to join him in the booth?
I don't know. We could have relived our Sunday baseball fiasco that we had.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Max, he can get it done. I've done a couple Sounds games with Max. We have had a good time doing that. He didn't invite me. Coverage is
Take it up
also
with
available on
Max.
the Game Nashville app and the GameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. So a good discussion we just had with Hutton about the Cam Ward thing. You can't control it. When you're the first pick in the draft, it's the only national story about the Titans. We're going to play you a clip from the MMQB podcast a little bit later. For example, I always listen to when some of the national people get around to talking about the Titans. There's not much they talk about, but when they do, who are they talking about, Derek? It's not Jeffrey Simmons.
No, it's not Jeffrey Simmons. It's Cam Ward.
It's Cam Ward.
Yes.
So you're the Titans. You got a new stadium opening. You've got a lot of energy. The stat was being thrown around 14 for 14 in team drills yesterday, 20 for 21. So to some degree, you can't control it. If you're the Titans, though, internally, how do you handle the Cam Ward thing? You've got to sell tickets, right? From a ticket standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, he's your guy. He's all you've got, as Jonathan Hutton pointed out, right?
Yes.
Most people couldn't even name you 5 other Titans, casual fans, especially outside of our listening area. But at the same time, what's the right way from a football ops perspective and a coaching perspective to not put too much added pressure on him and build him up so high early that you're setting him up to fail? So if you're in that room and you're discussing this, right, and you're hearing the jersey sale guy going, hey, we got to order another 500 sales. We got to hype it up. Let's put him on a billboard. Let's get him on this billboard or that billboard with our sponsorship. You've got all these people from that area trying to hype it up and maximize what you can get. But you've got to be conscious of that, the football side of it, right? If you're sitting at the other end of the table.
Yeah. If I'm the head coach, it's, and I'm listening to the PR and promotions and all this other stuff, I would listen and then I would say, well, he can't do any of that if he's not performing on the field. He can't do any of that if I hype him up and then he steps out there on the field and he looks like a guy that shouldn't be on those billboards. Rather than you're throwing him on, you're hyping him up, and you're going to do that regardless. I understand and get it. But I'm like, I'm not here to talk about, how much more visible this quarterback needs to be. I'm just worried about how much better he needs to be and how I need to develop him. But with that being said, I am only going to control the things that we can control in this building. We can control the narrative. I can't control necessarily what what promotions do. I can give my 2 cents or my opinion, but ultimately, I have to be the one, or we in this coaching staff, front office, meaning GM, Supreme Ruler of Football, and Brinkert. We have to all be on the same, page in regards, no matter how well he does or how bad he does. We are going to just keep it even kill. We're going to control the things that we can control, and that's developing our quarterback and watching him each and every day as he go out there on the field. You're going to have some good days, but then knowing that you're going to have some days where he takes a step back too.
No question about it. And that needs to be talked about on our text line. We'd love your input.
It's not that simple.
Right. 615-737-1025. And it's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Join the discussion here. We'd love to hear it. Chad texts in and says, I think it's overblown. If he's the guy, then whether he's hyped or not won't matter. That's 100% true.
Yes.
but you don't know how he's going to do until he does it. I will say this, and I don't know what's your perspective, because you were there when this was going on, but I do think Jeff Fisher, in particular, was very measured in what he promised about Steve McNair. Now, remember, it was a little different because Steve McNair had been building for a couple years behind the scenes before the team got to Tennessee. And even so, it was his first year as the full-time starter when the team played in Memphis. But he was very careful not to overhype Steve McNair. And he was very protective, I think, of Steve McNair, especially early on. He was very good at sort of rolling things away from criticisms that any high-end quarterback who had high expectations would normally get. Do you feel like that's an accurate assessment of back then? I think he was measured. He was aware of this topic we're discussing.
Of course. And again, that's why I say, only a few people on teams deserve that kind of, balance or delicacy, being delicate with. And in this situation, it's Cam Ward. And when I was playing, it was Steve McNair. Not that Steve McNair couldn't handle the criticism or couldn't handle the, if you had something to say, it didn't matter. But you knew as a head coach, I have to make sure I be measured in what I do with my quarterback. Yeah, he may be able to handle it, but, maybe somebody else can't. I don't know. But when it comes to the quarterback, I have to, protect when I need to protect, and be measured when I need to be measured. And typically you're measured when he does, it doesn't go like you thought it would go. Yeah. So you're measured and you're protecting him in a sense. Well, you're protecting him when things don't go bad, but you're measured when things go really good, because you understand we could take a step back next week and it could 100%. Be bad next week. So they did a great job at really being measured. And then it didn't hurt having Eddie, that took on a lot of that responsibility.
Yes.
Having guys like Bruce Matthews, other leaders, that it sort of takes away, sort of takes a little bit of that pressure.
Right. And when the team got here, you guys weren't a 3-14 team. You guys were a better team all around that was building into something pretty special. But I hear Brian Callahan so far in his young career, he gets a little optimistic. We've talked about this, right? In press conferences, he's really looking to tell you some of the good things that are going on. And I do wonder if he will be a little bit different when it comes to Ward, to not overpromise. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And
there's a lot riding.
Yes, and there's a lot riding on Brian Callahan's future, how this goes. So if he builds up Cam Ward to be, hey, he's going to be great, in so many words, and then underachieves, who's that going to reflect on? Unfortunately, Brian Callahan could end up being the guy that takes the fall for it. So if I were him, I would try to temper expectations, kind of like Jeff Fisher did, and said, hey, I would temper everything by saying, look, he's young. We think he's got a great future, but he's got a lot to learn. He's doing great, but let's pump the brakes just a little bit, in so many words, right? You find out. And you take it, you praise him when he does well, you protect him when he doesn't do well, but you try to keep as even keel as you can, I think. Yeah, and you have to fight that, because everybody's going, Cam Ward, number 1 jerseys. And I wonder where Warren Moon would sit on that, right? If that's an opportunity for Warren Moon's perspective, maybe in that discussion internally.
Yeah, and I'm sure, his voice will be heard in some form or fashion when it comes to Cam Ward. Or Cam Ward may choose to, welcome that relationship, which it seems, he has. So you just have, I think, as a coaching staff, because you understand all of the work that goes into preparing a player, let alone a quarterback, each and every day. So you understand it, you see it. Everybody else, even those that write about it, we don't actually see, how it's being made. We get a little bit of how it's going once we get out there on a practice field, but we don't actually see what's going on the day in and day out inside the meeting rooms every day. That's why you got to be measured, because you understand how much work you got to put in,
Yes.
to just to take that extra step the next day.
I think the most important thing I take away from this discussion, though, is in comparing it to you guys and Steve McNair, you had Eddie George, you had the newness of the team. And so I think it was a little easier to be measured. Right now, all the franchise really has to wrap their arms around is Cam Ward. And it's going to be tempting. It's going to be tempting to put so much hope and so many eggs in his basket. I hope that they can do that without putting added pressure on him. I do think the kid is pretty strong mentally, seems to be doing all the right things. His makeup seems to be really good. That should help him navigate this. But I think they should do the best they can to protect him. When we come back, we'll get your reaction. 615-737-1025. That's 615-737-1025, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll also get the Disney experience and the travel trials and tribulations of David James, who's back in the saddle with us today after navigating Disney and then getting back to Nashville. Today started with a 4:30 a.m. text saying, guys, my flight was canceled. I'm going to be late to the show. This should be good.
That is the worst. That's the worst.
We'll have more on this in a moment. Stay tuned. This is DVD on 102.5 The Game.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are, I'm sure, it's not your first time setting a resolution. Shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some solutions, people. I got some answers for you because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize their program specific to you and you only, as they did yours truly. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story. David, you just got off the airplane. Your plane's been delayed. You finally land in Nashville. Where are you coming from?
Disney.
I prefer Jiminy Cricket singing this song myself from back in the
Very
day,
true,
the
very
classic
true.
version. But so David Janes is back. He's had quite the odyssey today. So he is soldiering through here on DVD as we continue. We'll get back into the Titans at 1:00 today. But I did want, and this got some people's attention. We did touch on this because we told everybody Dave was at Disney World. And I grew up in Orlando. I didn't grow up my entire childhood there, but I moved there when I was 12, like right next to Orlando, like 30 minutes from the Magic Kingdom. So I know the Magic Kingdom. I know Orlando. It's changed a lot since I left.
Sure
I don't
it
go
has.
back there that much, but I do love Disney, and I have a unique perspective on it. And so I always am wondering what people's experiences were at Disney. And Jonathan Hutton said there are people, and he had mentioned Logan Ryan, I guess, in some form or fashion, helps people organize trips to Disney.
Yeah, him and his wife help out. Because there's ways where you can help, like set up, like, hey, here's where you can go. You can go to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah,
you can go to either Universal or Disney World. All those different parks. There's like 4 different parks.
I did take my family there several years ago. We all went, the 4 of us. We surprised our kids. And we mapped it out. We had this day we're going here, this day we're staying at this hotel. We're going to switch hotels. So you really do need a good game plan. So, David, now that you're here, you look like you're still breathing and functioning okay. You're not like falling asleep at the desk.
Thank goodness I haven't fallen asleep yet.
How was the experience?
So I went on the Disney cruise from Friday to Sunday. Okay. So that was really fun. I honestly recommend the Disney cruise because
the cruise. Okay.
Yes.
Now, see, this is a whole new ball game that is a big thing now.
It is. Yeah. And I think it helps out with, because we had 2 little kids, so 7 and 5. So they're at the ripe age of like, they're going to like this stuff a little more.
Okay.
And you see the characters a little bit more. Because like when you go to Disney.
So you fly to Orlando. Just like you would if you're going to the Magic Kingdom.
Yes.
But where do you go? You drive to the coast to get on the.
Yeah, so there's a port. There's a Orlando port. You just go there.
Like Orlando's in the middle of the state, so you're not
exactly,
you're not on the beach in Orlando. So where do you go?
So I forget. There's this port that's like 30 minutes outside of Orlando that we go to.
Okay.
So like we went to. So like as soon as I got out of the airport, I drove to the hotel, which was 30 minutes away, about 30 to 40 minutes away, and we go to this little port, and it was honestly, it was a quick experience. It didn't take too long that I thought it would, but like, and again, highly recommend the Disney cruise. It was really fun. You see, you go to different little restaurants. There's an Arendelle restaurant. There's a Marvel restaurant.
This is all on the ship.
This is all on the ship. And then they take you to the Bahamas. You get to see all the Disney characters that you don't really get to see unless you're there the whole day at Disney.
Okay.
So I recommend that.
I saw a news story about this, that the cruises are so well done that it is actually taking away from people going to the park itself, because people are choosing to do what you did, go to the cruise. Now, I think D Mace is on the record as saying he's not really a cruise guy.
I'm not
I
a
get
cruise
that.
guy.
I'm not really a cruise guy myself.
I still got to watch that documentary. It hadn't came out yet. Poop Ship.
Poop Ship.
Yeah, something like that. I still hadn't watched it, but man, oh man. That's another reason why I ain't going.
Okay, so Carol has texted in our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and several others have followed suit. Port Canaveral.
That's what it is.
But where is that?
It's
Florida,
like
man, you should know where it is.
I guess I should know where that is. That's you got to drive to the coast, I guess. But I'm curious about this. And Jared texted, not Jared Stillman. This is another Jared. Disney stinks, and the complete opposite about how they handled Will Levis, I guess, is what the Titans should do.
And that's what we
So
say.
he's hitting on 2 different topics.
So it's on Merritt Island. You know where
Merritt Island? Yes,
that's where it
home
is.
of the Mustangs. We played high school ball against Merritt Island.
Never
You know went to Merritt Island High School?
Who?
Will Purdue.
Ooh.
Okay.
The man.
The great Will Purdue.
Will Purdue.
grad.
He was a Merritt Island Mustang.
There we go.
So okay.
You played with Will Purdue, didn't you?
I did not. I came in a year, maybe 2 years after he was there.
Okay.
He was front and center stage when I was being recruited, though, so I watched him a lot. Okay, so the Disney thing. Yeah, Cocoa Beach. Yeah, that's a great beach, by the way. That is
Cocoa
cool.
Beach is my favorite beach.
Yeah, that's a nice one. So Disney. So I guess the experience is different. Long lines on the cruise.
Not really. I mean, it is if you want to see the characters. Not really. It was really easy. It was honestly. It was fun. The only time I remember I actually went on there's a Star Wars lounge that I went to, and they had a $5,000 drink. And I was like,
What?
Yo, there is. Yeah. There's a $5,000 drink.
Do I get younger when I drink it?
Yeah.
I've
What
heard
benefits
that,
do you
but
get? That's
I think you get a I get what they said it was, but it's insane. I first heard about it, I was like, yeah, no, that ain't gonna be for me.
Whew.
I don't make that much money.
Has anybody listening had the $5,000 drink? This
Yes.
is amazing. What's the cost comparison of the cruise as opposed to like staying for a couple days on the grounds?
Is it
'Cause
cheaper?
that was my game plan, is stay on the grounds so you can go to the different parks. You know, you get the Magic Kingdom, you got your Epcot, you got the animal thing, you got
I
several
think
different parks now.
I think it's a little bit more pricey just because it's a cruise,
Uh-huh.
but I honestly think no matter what, it's so worth it. Honestly, just because like you get to go to the Bahamas. There's different like places you get to go. Like I went to the Bahamas, and you just if you are with your family, I think it's worth it just
Okay.
because you get to see all the Disney characters like you normally would, and you don't have to
Okay.
be in the hot
So
sun.
your kids are obviously into the characters. Adam
Yes.
Vingan pointed this out on Monday, David, that he was scared of the Disney characters when he went to Disney.
I think that's the least surprising thing I've heard.
Adam being scared.
Adam
yeah,
is it.
yeah,
So
okay.
the cruise
Adam
would not
being
have been
scared
good
of a
for
big
Adam.
animal. Probably not that shocking.
Okay.
Also, not that shocking for a 4-year-old either.
Yeah.
Jared said you could go. This is Jared from Spring Hill, not to be confused with Mr. Stillman, who will join us later. You can go to Greece or Rome for 2 weeks for what you can do Disney in 4 and 5 days.
Listen, I'm not.
Now you've done this as well.
Yeah, I've done it, and it got to a point. I can't read. I think the last time before this last time as when the kids were smaller. They're grown now. Still my kids. Still call them kids. But the last time I went when they were younger, I got on that teapot, and man, my day wasn't right.
Yeah.
After
That would be
I got
my
off,
first advice to those going to the. If you're
Yeah.
that guy who gets sick, and I do, don't start your
but
day
that
with
was
the
my
teep-
first. That
the
was my
Mad
first
Hatter's
time ever.
teapot ride.
That
Do
was
not
my
do
first
that.
time ever getting sick on a ride.
Oh,
I got
It's a
sick on
killer.
that sick on that ride, got off, sat down on the little chair bench
and
for
you're
about
done.
20 minutes. But after that, I was completely done for the day. I muscled through because I had to.
Yeah, because you're there. You paid the
Ooh,
money.
man, mentally, my head was just done, man. So
I've been there.
didn't go back while they were kids after that.
Yeah,
I was done.
they don't warn you enough about the teacup ride.
No, they don't.
They really don't. It's like
They should be a big sign
It's
saying, "Look,
crazy.
if you get motion sickness,
What are
do
signs
not
on
do
it
this."
now?
Or
I
if you
think?
get on
Stay
here,
far away
don't
from this.
spin the wheel. Because I'm always on there. Like my little brother, he doesn't get sick, so he started spinning that wheel, and we're going. And of course, I'm the older brother. I got to act like I'm tough, right? And internally, I am hurting. I am hurting.
He
I
can't
was
wait
probably
for
on that
this.
same bench, teammates. In fact, I think they made that bench. They should put a sign on the bench. For those of you that get a little queasy after the ride, here you go. Here's
the
your bench.
queasy
It's
seats.
right here.
Queasy seats. No doubt about it.
Oh man.
Disney is a great experience, but yes, do your research before you go down there. Definitely
game
do
plan
that.
before
Get your
going.
game plan, get the details, because that will make a big, big difference for sure. We have another texter who thought it must have been Jared Stillman and not Jared from Spring Hill saying Disney stinks. He said Disney stinks sounds like something Stillman would
Well,
say.
Stillman can't say that. He has a little one now.
He'll be
Can't
there.
He can't be on record
there.
saying
No.
Disney stinks.
He'll be there with his fanny pack.
He can't. Yeah, fanny pack and all.
The fanny pack.
I'm picturing Jared with a fanny pack pushing a stroller at Disney
Yeah.
World.
See, now I would say if your kid is still in the stroller, it's probably a little early in the game to do that. You're better off waiting until your kid is tall enough to ride the rides. That would
Do
be
you
my
think-
advice.
Do you think? Okay,
And
okay. I want to ask you this, Willie, because do you think, and everybody, do you think as Jared is pushing the stroller at Disney World, he has little Jackson in the seat pushing it? Do you think he went over the history of the Tennessee Titans as he's pushing, as he pushing Jackson and just telling them about the history of the Titans?
I can picture. Okay, let's take one of my favorite rides at Disney, Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Little line.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You enjoy the sights. You get the pirates over there. You can watch. You can kind of anticipate what's this going to be like when we actually get on the ride. If that's a good line, right? If you got a good line, you got stuff going on, you can deal with it for
Exactly
15, 20 minutes. You work your fast passes. But I think that's where Jared will go in there and start. He won't be looking at the Pirates. He'll be talking Titans. That's what he'll be doing.
He'll find a Titans fan in there and he's like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, you want to talk about the Titans?
Yeah. Let me tell you about so-and-so. Let's tell you the story.
Have you heard about the right tackle story?
Tackle. Oh, boy. Yep, that'll be Jared. All right, when we come back, we'll get back into a Titans topic, and maybe we'll inspire Jared like we did yesterday with Derek's topic. We got one that's expanding a little bit more, and we're going to ask the question about what the Titans roster is going to look like when they open the stadium in 2027. And we're going to play a clip from the MMQB that I think goes along with this. So I think you'll enjoy what we got coming up here. Jared will join us at the end of the show. We'll see what kind of mood he's in. This is DVD here on 102.5 The Game. D-Mates, Vigan, and Donick coming at you here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason here with you. This week's Nashville's best deal is Staley's Chicago Italian Dining, one of Nashville's best kept secrets and winners of numerous best of awards. Enjoy authentic Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. So get half off a $20 gift card now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Adam Vingan is off this week. We set the table on this Titans topic we're going to hit on while the minicamp is going on. One of the podcasts that I've said this many times on this show, I really enjoy the MMQB podcast. In fact, it was just revealed on one of the last ones that Connor Orr, who does the podcast with Albert Breer, is going to be coming to Nashville. I'm not exactly sure why, if that's 100% Titans related or not. I will try to find out because I enjoy the repartee between the two. I think they do a good job. They went through the AFC South on their recent episode. They started the discussion with the Titans, and they asked the question of what would be a successful year this year in Cam Ward's rookie season. They both had different answers, and we've talked about it a lot, D-Mace, on the show, that it may not have to do exactly how many wins you get, but what's the feeling, what's the direction that you're headed in. This was a good way of putting it, I thought, by Albert Breer, and we're going to discuss this.
Here's where I would plant my flag for them. I would say, give me a half dozen players that I know are going to be around in 2027 or 2028.
Yeah.
Give me, come out of this year with some foundation pieces where it's like, we are not going into the draft again, as a dartboard team, a team
Right.
that has to get a good player on the roster. We are starting to form something that looks like it's lasting here. That doesn't mean superstars, but show me J.C. Latham can be a long-term answer at right tackle, right? Show me that you got Dan Moore right in free agency. Show me that the defense, you've got a couple of young pieces. Maybe it's Olu, who they drafted, Oladejo from UCLA, who they drafted. Maybe it's Kevin Winston, who I think has a ton of promise from Penn State at safety. But I think just having some of those pieces in place where it's all right, we're really excited to see where these guys go in 2026. That to me would be a success.
All right. So a very simple way of talking about the goal for the Titans season. He did not mention wins and losses. I appreciated that. But he said, give me some foundation, about 6, he said half dozen foundational pieces that are going to be part of your team that you're building around in 2027 or 2028. Now, I thought it was interesting you mentioned 2027 because as we talked about last hour, we think that the Titans are going to, let's say you get way, way ahead of schedule. They're not going to start playing in the new stadium until 2027. It's a great year. We remember the first year at the then Adelphia Coliseum. The Titans, the first year that they were the Titans, exploded. They became a different team. They went all over the Super Bowl. Great story. In a perfect world, with some good roster building, you hope that you have a really good team going into the new stadium where you got to sell some tickets. So I think it's a really intriguing question to ask. Give me the 6 foundational pieces that you think I don't want to say in a perfect world, because in a perfect world, maybe you have 10. But let's see who we think the ideal 6 players, if you could pick 6, D-Mace, that are foundational pieces that you think are going to be the players you are building around in 2027. So this is different than your question yesterday. Because now we're looking at 2027. Who do you hope are the 6 from the current roster?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not saying, hey, well, next year they're going to draft this guy. That we're not talking about that because that's going to be nice too. Hopefully you get some players there. But we know it's a thin roster. We know they got some new guys. Who are the 6 that you would take? I mean, I think we would all agree that Cam Ward's got to be one of the 6, right?
Of course. You
So
start
put him
off
in there.
You start off with Cam. Yeah, you don't want to be each and every year like Breer said, a dartboard team where just throw the dart, whatever guy, because we need people across the board, and that was the Tennessee Titans this year, to an extent. And you don't want that to continue to be the theme of every draft. So when you're looking at these players, what guys on this current team that we believe can be foundational guys that will usher this team into their new stadium in 2027? And the list, unfortunately, is very short, and it's even hard to come up with 7. What did he say? 7, 6?
He said 6.
6.
I mean, I think if we all are going to have Cam Ward as one, let's pick 6 others.
So
all right. So
it's
really, it
Cam,
is 7.
It's Cam. It's JC. You believe? It's
Okay.
Sweat.
Sweat. All right. So Skoronski. So JC Latham. Skoronski. T Sweat. That's 3.
That's it on offense as of now. I mean, and it's hard to count like DK and Isle Manor, because
so
it's
Breer
hard.
mentioned a couple of the draft picks.
Yeah.
Right. Femi
Oladejo.
and he mentioned the safety from Penn State. Those that would be great, right? I mean, we could put them.
Yeah, we could put
too.
them. I mean,
that would be
if
great.
you want to
have
add those 2 wide
that's
receivers,
going to be around. You got an edge rusher that would be outstanding. So let's put him down.
So you got
we're taking
Cam
a leap of faith
Ward,
here.
you got JC, you have Skoronski, Sweat, Oladejo. You have both of the receivers, DK and Isle Manor. So that's 7.
Well, geez. I mean, see, but
right
think
there.
about how many hits, how few hits they've had in the draft over the last 4 or 5 drafts, and how many would have to go right for that many to get on this list, right? The odds are going to tell you that they're not all going to hit.
Would you say like one of those 2 wide receivers needs to hit?
I would.
Yeah,
one of the wide
2.
receivers.
Yeah, one of the 2
huge.
needs to be a high contributor to this offense this season, I believe. But if you're saying, okay, let them ease in, they need to be that by 2027.
All right, so let's allot for, should we say 2 rookies?
Yeah, let's take one of the rookies off,
because we can talk about it all day of who we hope.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen. So let's just say 2 spots are rookies. So let's say Femi, Oladejo, the 2nd round pick, and let's go with the 3rd round pick, the safety.
Okay,
and his name escapes me. What's his name? The kid from Penn State. Why am I forgetting? But I'm using him because Breer. And then you have, you would hope that one of the wide receivers emerges, right? But okay, let's get to here's the crux of where their roster is, right? You tell me in 2027 are
Kevin Winston.
Winston
Jr. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's put him down. And then we got a wide receiver on there. So that's 6 spots, not including Cam Ward. So then we got room for one more.
Would you say Gunnar Helm or Jarvis Brownlee Jr.? One of those 2?
We can talk about the rookies
Brownlee
all day,
Jr.
but let's say
Jarvis Brownlee Jr.
Let's
How
hope
about that?
Let's hope that by the end of the year you have about 3 rookies that you feel really good about. That would be a pretty good hit. on your draft.
I think Jarvis Brownlee,
and that's not including Cam Ward, right?
Yeah, of course.
So 3 other draft picks. That would be a great draft. And we go back to some other drafts like 2016. But here's where I think the interesting part of this question is. Who's not on this list, right? Is Jeffrey Simmons going to be on this team in 2027? What do you think, D-Mace?
I don't think he will be. And again, I don't think it's because, I think he's going to be a bad player. I just think potentially the money he is going to want is not going to match up to what the Titans are thinking long term. I think he's going to want a little bit more. And the Titans are going to be thinking, no, if you want to stay, you need to take a little bit less or a lot less, because he's going to want a 3-4 year deal, and the Titans can give it to him, but I don't think they're going to give it to him at that price.
Okay. So Jeffrey Simmons will be age 30 when that stadium opens. I'll tell you who else is going to be 30. L'Jarius Sneed,
Mhm.
Lloyd Cushenberry. Are those two guys going to be on the team when the new stadium opens in 2027? I hope Cushenberry is. I don't
that's
know.
the one guy that I think maybe, but the other two guys, no. I don't think they're
Okay,
going to be
and
on
let's
the
throw
team.
in
No.
another name, Dan Moore. They just signed him. Spent some pretty good money.
I would tend
He's
to say if he plays well.
He's 27.
If he plays well, then yes.
You
if
better
he's
hope.
consistent, then yes.
You really hope that. But I don't know if he's a foundational piece, but you would sure love to have your left tackle and your right tackle solidified. See, I think, and I think the more you look at it, there's a lot riding on the offensive line. The investment they've made, 2 first-round picks, pretty sizable free agent spending on the other 3. We don't know what the one guy's got left. Is it Ziegler? What's his
Zeitler? He's
Zeitler,
1 year deal.
Zeitler.
1 year.
He's
deal.
a 1 year deal.
Yeah.
He's 35. So,
yeah, so let's just say he's.
I don't
1
think
year.
he's going to be
Yes.
in the new stadium, but if you could get 2 years out of him, even that would be great. Just being able to have continuity in that line. That there's so much riding on that. Tony Pollard, is he going to be on the team when the new stadium opens?
I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I'm not sure. You're talking about
I
this
doubt it.
season, all of next season, and then you're going into that.
You'd love to get one more really good year out of him.
Yeah.
Okay. Tajay Spears. No?
I'm not
no
sure.
chance?
No.
See, he's young enough.
I'm not sure. Unless Tajay, unless he stays healthy and pops, and I mean consistently, then I can't see him on once his contract is over. And it's
right. So
so
this is the thing. By that time, guys like him, Spears,
they'll be
I'll
at the
give
end
you
of
another
their
name,
rookie
Roger
contract.
McCreary. You would have to sign them to the next contract, and you got to be feeling good about investing in that guy. So, second contract for Spears, second contract for McCreary.
I don't see it. Either one of them. Again,
Neither one of them. McCreary, you don't think McCreary is a guy that you would hope to have in the new stadium? They got to keep some of these guys, right?
I'm not saying you don't hope to have him. I think if he's playing well, you hope to have him. But will someone else pay more to have a nickelback?
Yes. Well, that's where that's a good point.
So it's not about.
Or do you jump out and get him before he gets to the market?
I don't think the Titans are going to do that.
You don't think so?
No, he hasn't. I think McQuarrie has been I think he started off strong, and he sort of faded, and now he's just kind of like, okay, I found my space, and now I'm just going to be. That's the player I'm going to be. I'm not sure if that's what the Titans want, because you got to understand this. That third corner sometimes has to match up with your best receiver. And if I don't see that there's room for improvement with, say, McQuarrie or somebody like a McQuarrie, then if I can upgrade it, I am going to upgrade it without having to pay that guy a second contract. I can upgrade it through the draft and have that guy on a rookie contract.
Okay. One more. Is Chigakonkwo on this team when the new stadium opens?
It depends this year, but I'd say no. The Titans haven't signed or retained, I don't think, a tight end in a good while. Outside of Delaney Walker, and I'm talking about tight ends. I'm not talking about a backup tight end that plays special teams.
Right,
no. I'm talking about a starting tight end.
Sort of the main pass catching.
I don't think they've re-upped the main tight end since Delaney Walker.
I think you're right. So I
don't see Chig being that guy unless he comes out and catch 50, 60 balls, then I can't see him making it to the 27.
He would have to be somebody who really takes a jump that we're not expecting.
Exactly.
Because I think we've seen him long enough to kind of figure out what
type of player. He's
not bad.
He's a solid player, but he's
not bad, but he's not going to be a second contract guy at this point. Probably, right?
He's not one.
You got to hope that the rookie that you just drafted ends up being better for less. Yeah.
You hope Gunnar Helm could take that step in his second year. Hopefully he can come on and emerge as that guy this year. But then if he doesn't, if he show progress, he show development, you hope that second year is the year that he takes off and be a starter. I just don't think Chig has done enough at this point, and it's going to take damn near 180, I think, for the Titans to say, you know what, our priority in offseason is to sign Chigakonkwo to a longer term deal.
I'll believe that when I see it. So there's the question: 615-737-1025. Give me the 6 players. Let's keep Cam Ward out of discussion, because it goes without saying that for anything to go right by the time that stadium opens, they have everything riding on Cam Ward being a part of that. But 6 foundational pieces, if you had to predict when that stadium opens in 2027, who's on your list and who's not on your list? But it should, what this drill, I'm calling it a drill like we're at a camp or something. What this exercise does, though, is show you how thin the options are. As Mike Borgonzi walks in and looks at all his players and saying, okay, let's look at our team 2027, new stadiums open. He's going down a long list of players who are going to play big roles on this team this year that he cannot tell you right now if they're going to be on the team in 2027. It is a thin roster of talent 25 and under. They got basically none, right? Other than the list we started with yesterday: Skoronski, Latham, and Sweat. Okay, we got something there. You hope. Pretty good. I don't know how great, but after that, it gets very, very thin, other than your rookie class. That's not a good place to be. 615-737-1025. Who are your 6 foundational pieces when that stadium opens? Hit the text line, hit the phone line. DVD is coming back in a moment. DVD presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll check in with Jared Stillman a little later in the hour, but today's exercise is to predict the hope that you have 6 foundational pieces when you go into the new stadium in 2027 by the end of this year. So we got a lot riding on this draft class is what we're finding here, because the rest of the candidates are pretty shaky. And this is a little bit of what we got into yesterday with the Titans' state of the roster. But I think it's a great question. Albert Breer brought up that's what he wants for it to be a successful season. Forget about the wins and losses, but identify when you go into that new stadium in 2027, 6 foundational pieces. We've asked you guys to throw them out there, 615-737-1025, and see what you think. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but this is what Brinkert and Borgonzi wanted to stress about them building, this roster. They want to be able to draft, develop, and retain. And because they know how crucial and critical it is in today's football to get your younger guys up to speed as quickly as possible, because they're going to be the guys that you're going to look to as the years go on, is those older guys, those younger guys that you tend to draft right now. So as fast as they can get these guys on board, the better it is for the Tennessee Titans. Because right now, frankly, realistically speaking, you take out let's just take out all of the rookies. Let's just say rookies outside of Cam Ward. Let's just say rookies, because we know Cam Ward's going to be there.
Right. I think
so
for this to work, they need about 3 other guys.
Yeah.
Out of all of them to
Exactly.
be, and that's a lot to hope for.
Exactly. Because if you
from
take
a second through a 7th round, right?
Because if you take the rookies out, then you're looking at the running back room. Nobody really.
You got nothing. You got nothing. You can
receiver
really count.
room outside of the rookies. Receiver room. Nobody. You hope that.
I think Cushenberry and Dan Moore are 2 swing guys that would be really important. I'd like to be able to put them on that list, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah. So outside of that, it's tight end position. You're taking Gunnar Helm out, so I don't see Chikakonkwo being here in 2027. I don't see Josh Wiley. If he is here, is he a big contributor? I don't know. So you're looking at Dan Moore, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, and J.C. Latham.
Let's just run down a couple of things that the texters the listeners have put in here for their candidates. We've got Skyler saying Latham, Dan Moore, Sweat, Femi, Olade, that's the 2nd round pick.
Yes.
Oladejo, Kevin Winston, the 3rd round pick. That's a safety, and Cedric Gray, or one of those linebackers. Now the linebackers, I don't know. Maybe you come up with something in there. I'm not sure. I'm not counting on it. But Skyler points out Skoronski won't make it to the 2nd contract if he keeps playing like he has. Simmons, Hooker, Snead will be gone by 2027. Too old and expensive. I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
I think the chances that any of those 3 are on the roster are very slim. Maybe one of the 3, but likely none of the 3. Another texter, Latham, Dan Moore, Io Manor. That's one of the wide receivers. That's the kid from Stanford. Oladejo, Winston, Brownlee. Now that's an interesting. Jarvis Brownlee is one that maybe would have an outside shot to be a guy that you want on the team in 2027. That would be a great swing guy to put out there. That's a good one I had not mentioned.
Yes, I think, judging by the way Brownlee played last year, he had some good moments, and we understand he got beat some, a few times or a handful of times more than he would have liked. But he was a rookie last year, and he was learning on the fly. They didn't expect him to start, but he had to start because of the injuries, and he became a better player as the year went on. So I think his development this year is going to be crucial. Can he build on what he did last year? If he does, then he is a core foundational player. I like the
Okay.
way he plays. I like his demeanor. I like that, it seems like he learns from what goes on out there on a football field. We had an opportunity, maybe I'm biased because we had an opportunity to talk to him, and he just seemed like a kid that was all about ball. That's all he was about. So I think if he has another year, to build on what he did last year, and if he can develop as it seemed like he is doing, he's going to be one of those corner guys, meaning one of those pillar guys.
He's got an opportunity to do it.
Mhm.
He's certainly going to get the chance to
Foundational.
play. Dylan in Antioch says, at this point, I would not even bet on Skoronski getting a second contract. That would be disastrous if he doesn't get that. He says, unless he takes a huge step forward this season. I don't know if he needs to take a huge step.
Mhm.
I think he took a pretty good step last year, and I think another decent step this year. He's on his way to a second contract. But he points out, Dylan does, Nate Davis didn't get a second contract, and they're pretty much the same player right now. He said in his opinion, I don't agree with that. I think Skoronski is a step up from Nate Davis, who was a solid player,
Mhm.
but he was one of the several guys under the John Robinson that they let walk and didn't sign to the second contract.
But see, the thing is with Peter Skoronski, yes, he's a former first rounder, but he's not. I don't think he can command unless he has a great season this season. I don't think he's going to command the big dollars. Now there may be one crazo out there that decides we want to pay him, more than what you should. But I think, on average, I think every team would probably look at him as a, not a big ticket guy.
Okay, beware, D-Mates. I'm going to strike a chord with this one because I'm going to bring back something.
Oh, my goodness.
Text. Johnu Smith was really good. We shouldn't have let him go. Well, there's another guy that they did not reinvest in.
And that part
we were talking about.
I wasn't in
ends
agreement. Yeah, I wasn't in agreement with them not re-signing Johnu. I thought in this offense, he was becoming a player that you wanted him to be, and you, for whatever reason, you decide not to re-sign him to another contract.
Wes in Clarksville says, I bet he's feeling very optimistic today. I bet we have another GM and coach and QB in 2027.
I hope not.
Oh man, imagine that trifecta.
Oh my goodness! If it, which means we're in for 2 more horrible seasons. That's what he's basically saying.
Another pessimistic texter says, I'm sure Ward will be on the roster, but not as a starter. I don't think he's got what it takes. All right, time will tell on that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to one other question that is an offshoot of this. If we agree that Jeffrey Simmons is not a guy you could put on this list of 6 for the foundation, shouldn't they trade him? If he's not going to be on the team in 2027, why are we wasting our time?
I think you have to keep him almost.
But isn't it kind of the pump and dump? You hope he plays well so his stock goes up, and then you can get as much as you can for him. Like I would start to be in that mode, honestly.
Yeah, you have to. He has 2 more years plus this season. So he has a total of 3 more years left on his contract plus this season. I know, and I believe 100% he's not going to reach that last year in his contract.
And he will have no trade value at that point. So if you're going to trade him, the earlier you make up your mind to do that, the more you have a chance to get for him. I think.
This season, there's a reason why. And listen, he wants to be a better player. I know that. And you're trying to find ways to reinvent yourself. There's a reason why Jeffrey came in 15 pounds lighter, moves better.
Okay.
He chose to work, a little bit longer with his guy. He knows this is his contract year. He knows it. I know he has 3 years remaining on the contract, but this is the year. Okay. Because if he balls out this season, he understands that he won't be in camp next season. He just won't. He won't be in camp next season. Why? Because he and his camp understands that he's getting older, and this is his last big shot at a contract, which tells me the Titans, he will not be on this team in 2027 because they're going to find a way to facilitate a trade right before the draft.
All right.
That's my prediction.
Okay. So
I think he's going to play great this year. I think it's going to be a really impactful
Okay.
player.
So, but you're saying if you're the Titans, then you should absolutely be in the mode of,
Oh, yeah.
let's see what we can get
Yes.
for Big
After
Jeff.
this season, yes.
And not, hey, let's hope Big Jeff's still great when he's 30.
Yes. It's
Because I agree with you 100%.
okay. If we have to keep him, we got to keep him, but we know that he may not be coming into camp because there's going to be a contract dispute.
Right. And that's a tough place
And
to
that's
be.
just how it is.
And if that happens, and we've seen it before,
Mhm.
you don't get much in a trade.
You see what's happening to Hendrickson, and I guarantee you Simmons and his
TJ
camp is
Watt.
watching that.
Yeah.
TJ Watt. Simmons and his camp is watching what's going on
question.
in regards, because those guys have years left.
Yep.
On their
And they're a little bit
contract, a year or
older
two
than
left.
Jeffrey,
Exactly.
but Jeffrey will get to that point
Absolutely.
pretty soon. 29, 30 years old, where you start to, most people
Mhm.
start to age, start to drop off around that time. It doesn't mean that they are individually going to. Nobody thinks they're going to, but a lot of people do.
But and there's nothing wrong
No,
with
there's
that
nothing wrong with
Like,
that.
listen, if Jeff want to drop 15 pounds, Jeff want to come out here and be the best player he can be for this season, knowing that more than likely this is a contract season, then so be it. Because I know I'm gonna get the best version of Jeffrey Simmons. So be it. But no, when that happens next year, there will be a contract dispute. 100%. I predict there will be he will say, I am not coming into camp until I get a contract. Every defensive player has done it. Hendrickson, TJ, he's doing it.
Okay.
Myles Garrett threatened to do it last year. He ended up getting his contract this year. Or he threatened it this year? One of the two. But he ended up getting his contract. He said, I wanted to be traded. He thought about being traded. They gave him a fat contract. What did you hear? Nothing after that. So again, Jeffrey is going into his contract year. And I think the Titans know it.
I think you are setting the table. So we've talked a lot about the leadership stuff. I think this contract part of it is going to end up being a much bigger story than the leadership part of it. I think, even though it's easy to grasp. Hey, he's a leader. Is he not a leader? It's an easy one to discuss. The contract part is a little more complicated, but I think the more important thing is Jeffrey Simmons has been a pretty big asset.
Yes.
Can you get something for that asset before you lose him for nothing? Or just let him age out and play for what we think is going to be a pretty mediocre team for the next couple of years, the last couple of years of this stadium. Let me throw another name at you and give me your vision for the next year or two. I think we believe that Calvin Ridley is not going to be on the team when the new stadium opens. Is that fair to say? Yeah. I'd be surprised. He'd have to play better than I think he's going to play at the stage of his career. Let's not forget, he's a little older than people realize. I hope he's got the ability for the next year or two to really help Cam Ward, right? That would be a huge return on your investment for Ridley. If he ends up being a really good target who helps Cam Ward succeed in the early years. But 2027, when the new stadium opens, I don't know if Calvin Ridley is going to be on the team. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you for this reason. Again, I'm trying to, and maybe I passed. Oh, here it is. Calvin Ridley. This is another reason why, and I don't think it may not have a lot to do with the production unless he just like don't perform. So he's under contract for 2 more seasons after this. He'd be in year 33. So he has this year with a base at 22, next year 20, and then 27, 20.
Right.
It
and
doesn't
at that point,
sound
he'll
like
be going into his 33 season. Now that's older than D-Hop was.
Yeah, it's not that it's a lot. It's not that it's a lot of money, but it may be a lot of money for a 33-year-old receiver, depending on what the production is.
Yes.
So if he goes out this season and 1,300 yards, okay, he comes back in 26, that's going to be the year. 25 and 26 are going to be the 2 years that the Titans look at and determine whether Calvin Ridley is on this team in 2027. I can't see him being on this team in 2027. They don't have a history of keeping receivers that long,
right,
when they've either drafted them or brought them in as free agents young. They don't have a history of keeping them well into their 30s. So I think this season is probably more important than a 26 season, because they need They need somebody that can grow with Cam Ward for the next 5 to 6 years. That's what they need.
I agree. And if we, this is this is the other way to look
Or
at
4 to 5 years. Let's say
it.
that.
If we were doing this exercise in 2019,
Mhm.
I think we would have a much better
It'd be easier.
picture, easier list, and we'd be trying to narrow it down to
Mhm.
6 and not find 6 of players that we thought and knew would be the core of the team in 2 years.
Just think if you'd have kept AJ.
Like right now, we're really having trouble identifying that we're relying on rookies to be the core that you have in 2 years. That's not a good place to be in. It wasn't like that
No.
before, but that's where those empty drafts have really haunted them. The last 3 Robinson drafts in particular, because those are the age players that you would be thinking would be on this list of 6,
Mhm.
and they don't have any. All right, when we come back, we'll get Jared involved in this discussion. We'll ask him the question, and we will move forward to the finish line here on DVD here on 102.5 The Game. All right, we're coming down the home stretch. Stillman and Company coming up next. I'm told that Jared will not be joining us. So I don't know what Jared had. Apparently, he told this to other people.
He has Sirius until 2.
But he kept
Yeah.
his secret from the three of us. He told other people involved in our show. So
I wish I would have known. Yeah, the producer would love to know
we had a
this.
communication breakdown somewhere. But Jared would be rip-roaring, ready to go at 2 o'clock, I'm sure. Willie Donick, Derek Mason here with you on DVD. So D-Mace, NBA Finals Game 3 tonight. I'm really hoping that we see a classic tonight. And I want the Pacers to win because I feel like for this to be a fun series that we remember someday and not just, oh, yeah, who won it in 2025? Oh, yeah, that was OKC. I think the Pacers have to win this game.
Of course, they have to. And OKC is favored by 5.5 points in Indiana. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, if Indiana doesn't get this game, this series is over with, I believe. Even though I think OKC will win the series, but if they can't, pick up a victory tonight, I've already stated, the third game in a series hasn't been kind to the Indiana Pacers. They've lost every third game in this year's playoffs. They got blew out twice, and they lost to the Knicks by 6. So third game hasn't proven to be one that the Indiana Pacers show up, up on the court. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play, considering they got mollywopped in game 2 by the Thunder. So we'll see what happens. But I'm interested in seeing this, and you know what I'm really interested in seeing, Willie. We haven't talked about it all. We talked about it briefly at the beginning of the show. I can't wait until Friday when Edmonton plays the Panthers, Florida Panthers, for it'll be the third game in that series, the fourth game in that series.
That's
fourth game in that series.
Game 4 is tomorrow.
Yeah, game 4 is tomorrow.
Elliot Friedman will join us tomorrow.
I'm really looking forward to that because, again, I want to see what adjustments, because they're still playing in Florida, right? So Florida has the advantage when talking about line changes.
And that's one thing that they don't do in the NHL that the NBA started doing. Or did the NBA switch back to the 2-2-1-1-1? Do they still go 2-3-2?
Yeah, it's 2-2-1-1
in the NBA.
Yep.
Remember for a long time,
it was going 3.
They went 2-3-2
Yeah,
because
2-3-2.
East versus West. The NHL, if you were ever going to do it, would probably be smart to do it when you have Edmonton and Florida so far apart. Let's just stay in Florida for one more game.
Yeah, 2-3-2.
But I think the teams, they want that change in venue in game 6 and 7. So I'm with you. I think there's a lot of parallels in these two series where the Pacers and the Oilers are a little bit in catch-up mode. They're struggling to keep up in the race. When everything's going right, they got just enough to do it, but they need something. They're clearly underdogs at this point, I would say. Let me give you one other topic to tackle that just came out. Finally, and we should raise a toast because finally there are going to be challenges in college basketball for rules for referees calls instead of we're gonna go to the monitor to see who the ball went out of bounds on. The ref comes over. Yeah. He's giving a little sweet curly cues on. Yeah, let's take the monitor.
And they all three look at the monitors like, all right, guys, what do we see?
Okay.
What do we see?
You get the little mousy mouse, and you're like, let's roll it back. How much time was left?
They were horrible.
Driving us.
Yeah, they were horrible this season.
Driving us crazy.
Especially in the tournament. They were.
Yes.
So
mercifully, we have a challenge system now.
Wow.
But now here's what they come up with, and I'd like to see a little more detail on this because officials can still initiate video reviews, guys.
Like, seriously?
Please don't.
No, man.
I think it should just straight up be you make your call. You're the official. You make the call. Put it on the other team
to challenge
that doesn't like the call to challenge. So here is what it looks like. Coaches can now challenge. This is going to be ratified, it looks like. Coaches can now, this is men's and women's basketball. Coaches can now challenge at any point in the game out of bounds calls, basket interference, goaltending, and whether a secondary defender was in the restricted area. Borrowing from NBA's challenge rules, teams must have a timeout to request an interview. If the challenge is successful, teams will get one additional replay challenge for the rest of the game. If the initial challenge is unsuccessful, the team will not be able to challenge the rest of the game. So I like that as a strategy.
Yeah, you got to
That
be
is going to keep the game flowing, because a coach who might not like a play where the ball,
Hurley.
hey, that went off of David. Yeah.
Hurley.
Hurley loves
Pick your
the
Hurley.
refs.
Exactly.
Bobby
Pick
or
any one
Danny.
of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're going to do it, you better be right. But here's what's interesting too. Don't you think? Let's say the referees, let's say David is our ref.
Mhm.
D-Mace, you and I are on our bench, and we're like, yeah, that David, man, he's a terrible ref. I'm going to challenge every time he screws this up. He's having a bad night. And let's say we challenge and we're right. Now, according to the rule, we can only challenge one more time. Even if we're right on the second challenge, we don't get another challenge. I don't like that. I think if you're right every time, you should
be able
keep
to
your
keep
challenge.
it. Yeah, you should be able to keep your
I think you
challenge.
should go until you're wrong. Don't you think? Because the refs, who's to say that David won't screw 5 more calls up?
Well, I guess.
Hey! I will not screw 5 more calls up. Maybe one more.
We're gonna have to have faith in you then. Or
But
what's
you
gonna happen,
should be
you're
able to
gonna,
keep
you're
your
gonna
challenge.
save that challenge. You're gonna save the challenge, and so that will, I think, minimize or at least decrease the number of mindless challenges.
So they're
in the
saying,
first half, or even with 15 minutes left to go.
They're saying that if you challenge and you are not successful, you lose both. You can't challenge anymore, right? But if you challenge,
if you lose your challenge, you're done with the challenge.
you can't challenge
Yeah.
anymore. So,
and if you don't have any timeouts, you can't challenge. So you gotta
but
save
if you
timeouts.
get it right, you do have another challenge, right?
Oh, but yes, but only one.
Only one. I mean, I guess that is right, because
Like in NFL, if you're right,
you would be able
you
to
keep your you can continue to challenge.
Yeah, but I mean, I can see why you do it, because you don't want, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And you keep on challenging on and on and on and on and on. It's like, okay, you got 2 challenges no matter what. Now, if you guess wrong, you lose both of them. But if you guess right, you still get to keep your last. So I'm okay with that, because I'm all about getting those referees in and out of that monitor booth as quickly as possible. That's all.
Yeah. While officials could still initiate video reviews on goaltending and restricted arc plays in the final 2 minutes of games, so officials can do that without a challenge. Out of bounds reviews can now only be initiated by a coach's challenge. I like that. So you can't just play the card, the crutch, if you're the ref, because I see this all the time.
Mhm.
You and David go for a rebound. Who to go off of? Like for a million years, I made it. If I'm a ref, I make the call.
Yeah.
I make the call, and we live with the call. Now that ref is like, as soon as that ball goes up, he's looking around.
Oh, it touched his pinky.
He's looking around going, let's just to be sure, let's take the monitor. And then, because there's a lot of battles, especially in the last 2 minutes of games, where you don't know who will run in a pickup game.
Yeah.
You're like, it's off you. It's off you. No, it's not off of me. It's off you. We fight for a
Let's
minute.
go to review.
And then you're like, all right, it was off me. You're right. It was off me. Most of the time, the person knows. That's what they ought to do.
But they're not going to say anything. But I am happy college basketball has got
we're moving
a
into the
replay.
21st century. And then here's
And
the
you
last
lose-
one.
and you lose your
We're going to end
challenge.
on a sour note. Officials will also continue to use instant replay for timing, scoring issues, and we're going to check to see if it was a flagrant foul. We're going to see if it's a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2 or just a common foul. That is the dumbest.
It amazes me,
So
Willie.
dumb.
Willie, it amazes me.
People
how
get
long,
contact in a basketball game. It's okay.
how long they're at the monitor.
Oh, that's a
and they're
flagrant
watching
1,
that.
or should it be upgraded to a flagrant 2? I don't know. Oh, well.
It's funny.
Don't
they're,
even get me started.
They're at that microphone for like
I
5
know,
minutes.
I
It's
know.
like, come on, that's not a flagrant
I
foul. You know it.
And the guy loves to get in the camera, right at the scores table, look at, we are going to upgrade to a flagrant 2. Oh, God. Killing me. Man.
Hey man, that's his
Yeah, well.
that's his time in the sun, man. He's shining.
It's camera
Okay.
time.
Camera time.
All right, we're out of here. We'll have to pick up this discussion tomorrow. Jared's coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful, and loving Wednesday. Peace.